So this video went viral recently. What are we doing to white people? It looks like this video is about non-white people apologizing to me. Finally, after so many years of humiliation and oppression, now I'm getting taken seriously or something.
There's been something going on for a while now that we're being told not to notice. More to the point, that we're asking white people not only to ignore, but to accept. The rising tide of racial hatred against white people.
Oh, I see. I've seen videos like this before.
In the past decade, there has been a noticeable cultural shift in what constitutes acceptable speech as it relates to white people. Back when I was a kid, in the early 2000s, the mainstream American culture preached about respecting each other's differences and not seeing color. Nowadays, we say that not seeing color is racism, that you must see color. But the more
Whoa. The rhetoric that is being used here reminds me of like the way people on like Poll or Stormfront try to construct a, hey, fellow whites, have you ever noticed that this is kind of unfair, like type of rhetoric template that they try to like red pill the normies with, except of course in this case it's coming from a non-white person. We'll see how many like euphemisms we can fit in here.
back then, saying something offhanded about white people were seen as not appropriate.
That is absolutely not true. Offhand jokes about white people have been common for decades and decades back. The idea that in the 90s and 2000s, people were not making jokes about white people is hilarious. I don't know if you've seen like any Simpsons episodes from back then, or like anything from Chappelle, or any Chris Rock bits, or like literally any pop culture from that time, but yeah, no.
But that soon gave way to our current times, in which there exists virtually no limit to what racial minorities can and do say about white people.
There are a couple of limits.
I believe this is the natural outgrowth of a perverse ideology that teaches us that every societal ill, is the fault of white people, and that whatever prejudice acts we may inflict upon them does not constitute discrimination because we don't have the power to discriminate.
There are definitely some people who believe this, but this belief is literally centuries old. The idea that any retributive violence against white people is justified and not an element of social oppression goes back to before the abolition of slavery. So this video might succeed in identifying some negative behaviors that are associated with the progressive left, but it will only do so as part of a framing device where it dishonestly suggests that this is some kind of like new rising tide, like some immediate threat that is growing worse that must be, opposed immediately lest it go overboard and white people all get genocided or whatever, which is ridiculous. When you accept the fact that this like difficulty with, I don't know, kind of like from meaningless to slightly more pernicious anti-white prejudice goes back basically as far as modern racial politics, it seems a lot less urgent. You can kind of tell the framing, like just from the title of the video, what are we doing to white people? If you've ever spent any time with progressive lefties, you will know that the #1 group of white bashers on the planet are other white people who are desperately looking to virtue signal in front of their, like, ambiguously brown friends. But the we here, this is race war rhetoric. The idea that white people are being victimized by what? Twitter jokes about them not being able to jump, you know? I'm not saying that bigotry against white people isn't real. There are plenty of people bigoted against white people. Obviously, it's less socially harmful than bigotry to groups that are actually socially oppressed. I mean, there's a multiplicative effect when you're in power and, discriminate against others. But, like, realistically, if you're talking about this progressive, glib disregard for the ability to oppress white people through your actions or behavior, what you say, the #1 perpetrators of this are other white people. Do you think the reason this channel got as many views as it did was because the person spouting this BS wasn't white? Well, having this being presented by a non-white person makes it come across like the #1 point is, oh, you can't call this racist because it's a non-white person saying this. Rather than like a white person fear-mongering about the other races rising up to oppose them or whatever. You have a non-white person. And secondly, it makes it come across as more like, I don't know, like a tell-all. Like, look, I don't know what their YouTube presence was before this. The anti-Asianness within the black community. Yep, this is a race war channel. The red pill and the woke mob. Our society is purposefully turning a blind eye towards anti-Asianness in the black community. Anti-Asian violence and the white supremacy narrative. Yeah, this is a race war channel. The purpose of this channel is to, like, stoke racist sentiments. Do you think he's perpetuating this narrative maliciously? No, I think this is an op. Yeah, I think it's malice.
The difficulty here is that no matter how many anecdotes I share, they are just that, anecdotes. And people who refuse to believe that this is happening will just chalk it up to my experiences being a fluke.
Literally nobody refuses to believe this is happening. Everybody knows that black people make jokes about white people. White people make jokes about white people. Everyone makes jokes about white people. We know this. Everyone knows this. Nobody denies this. You can get Netflix specials, Comedy Central specials that are entirely full of black comedians making jokes about white people that you could not make about black people. We know. It's not a secret.
Or worse yet, they'll say I'm lying. So I've compiled some TikTok videos.
Okay.
I want you to take a look.
Oh, God. Okay. Really? Wait, really? Wait, nobody will believe my anecdotes, so here are some random spurious... so you're angry that I don't have any studies to prove this thing everyone knows is already happening? Well, are you ready for cherry picking, the other way of proving a systemic issue?
The idea that when you have a power disparity, the less powerful sort of has this general society given leeway to complain about the more powerful.
They do. That is literally true. The more social power you have, the more your grievances can be turned into legitimate social harm, and the less power you have, the more your grievances are just the grumbling of the oppressed. That is definitely true. Yeah, that's like, it's kind of hard to argue against that, you know. So his next move will be to argue that there is no oppression, which, you know, we've spent years on this channel talking about the incredibly extensive ways in which that claim is stupid.
The villagers complaining about their king doesn't have the same ring as the king making snide and crude comments about the villagers. But that's not what's going on here. Because although certain segments of our society refuse to
Here he goes.
this, even as evidence mount before our very eyes.
Here he goes.
In one side of the political aisle, people of color actually have greater power than white people.
There it is. Right. The whole point of this, ultimately, if the only point of this video was to say, like, hey, like, can we stop with the barely disguised animus towards white people? It's stupid and counterproductive. I'd be fine with that. I've made that video. The real point of this video is ultimately to argue against the concept that there is any existing racial oppression, thereby implying that any disparity between white and non-white people is purely the product of the failings of the non-white people. When people say there is no such thing as racism anymore, or there is no racial inequality, what they're saying is that any existing inequality is purely due to merit. And the natural consequence of that line of logic is that black and Latino people are just worse than white people because they have less money and have less social power than white people in this country.
They use phrases and talking points like, punching up. You can't be racist to white people. You can't.
It is punching up. White people are far more socially privileged than non-white people. You can absolutely oppress, like, or you can, you can be racist against white people. Being, like, racially oppressive towards white people is pretty difficult. I don't know what you'd have to do to even make that. That's pretty difficult. You know, there are probably some, like, niche cases institutionally where you might be able to pull that off, but that's a tough one.
Oppress the oppressor, meaning I'm acting oppressively, but I've designated you as the oppressor, so everything goes.
Well, no. If you can't oppress the oppressor, then you're not acting oppressively, because that's what the term means. If you can't oppress, then you aren't acting oppressively. It's not really how it works.
Apparatus to delude themselves into believing what they're doing faces no moral quandary, but in the back of their minds, perhaps in their subconscious minds, is racial revenge.
See? Again, race war rhetoric right here. All of this minor bullshit from TikTok that I've summed up. Hey, don't engage in any socioeconomic study. Don't look at any data. Don't look at anything that broadly examines society. Let's cherry pick a couple of examples from a country of 330 million. Now that I've cherry picked these examples of utterly inconsequential racial grievance, I've now indicated that white people are about to be beheaded by the mob of non-white people. And the reason they're doing this is because they feel racial animus motivated by revenge. The only logical like consequence of this way of thinking, the only road it's leading down is like race war, white ethno-state. It's the only thing that's being done here.
We experienced it. You experienced it too. See how you like it. That people of color are using our newfound power to act this way.
See, that people of color are using our newfound power. This is why he's running down this road as a non-white person. He's talking about this as a non-white person in the way he is because he's an insider, right? He's seen it. He's seen all this anti-white hatred. He's a turncoat. He's broken rank from his non-white brethren to warn the white race that the mob is coming for them to behead them, you know? Their paranoia is justified. You've seen it, haven't you? They're a whistleblower.
Because such acts have its roots in human nature, not white people nature. And one can only imagine what might happen in the coming decades when the demographics of the US will have shifted.
Like I said, this is race war shit, white ethno-state shit.
What we're seeing is just the beginning.
Fear-mongering.
To the white people who are watching, I just want to say, you are not an oppressor for
Literally, this is like hello, white people. It is I, at the good non-white. Allow me to deliver to you eugenicist, white supremacist rhetoric, but as a whistleblower to the plan.
You did not choose to be born white, just like any of us did not
I did.
choose to be born in our race. And to ask of you, at the individual level, for example, to give your life in service of people of color.
Give your life in service of people of color. Again, race war rhetoric. The idea here is that by becoming progressive or by being anti-racist, you are like cucking yourself out to non-white people, or you are making yourself their slave. This is a really common neo-Nazi talking point. The idea that being like a passive member of society or being anti-racist or just being a good person, frankly, means that you are like being subservient to the blacks who are taking advantage of your kindness by doing crimes or whatever. This is a really common like Nazi talking point.
To be used as physical barriers at protests.
What? When white people go to the front of a protest to face off the cops, you know they're choosing to do that, right? Like there aren't black people behind them holding them from straps like a shield.
To give away your house to black people instead of your children.
What? Is that something people on the left do? Like they'll own a house and they'll be like, "Ah, sorry, little Timmy, I could leave this to you, my children, but instead I'll donate this to black." I've never given a house to a black person, Vaush. Damn, me either. Fuck. I guess I'm doing whiteness wrong. I'm telling you, this guy's either alt-right or like borderline. All of these points are basically just watered down versions of poll rhetoric that I've seen 1,000 times before. It's all Nazi shit. I don't want to jump off the gate here, not because I don't think I'm right. I am right, I always am. But because maybe other people aren't as familiar with like where these tropes lead. The only solution to what he's proposing here is the establishment of a white ethno-state, and everything that he said is basically like, the race war is coming for you, whitey. Which side are you on? Yours or the people's who hate you? That's the actual like point that's being made here, you know?
All actual things that have been publicly demanded of white people.
Just like just by someone? Like just some guy said it? Oh, okay. Damn, that's crazy. I recorded this homeless man on a corner stop shouting that white people should give their houses away. The race war is coming.
To ask this of you is morally reprehensible collective punishment. You are not under any obligation to carry yourself in any sort of way that others demand of you just because of the color of your skin.
Now, again, think of who this video is for, right? The kind of person, so the kind of like self-hating liberal white person who would give their house away to a black family rather than to their children. First of all, this person does not exist. The person I just described doesn't exist. They're entirely made up. It's a fantasy. They're not real. But if such a person were to exist, do you think they would be convinced by this video? Do you think the target of this video is legitimately leftist TikToker white people? And this guy is actually trying to reach those people in an effort to get them to, you know, like confront and get rid of their white guilt or whatever? No, obviously not. So why is he making a purely rhetorical plea to these people when in reality the content of the video is for another group? This is meant to incite anger and motivation in existing racist white people. People who are watching this are already racist and largely white. They're meant to watch this and go, yeah, I'm not going to end up like those people. Yeah, you're right. It is fucked up that I'm being demanded by the black government to give my houses away. And they're like 13 years old and will never own a house in their life. Like, you know, I refuse to go to the front of the Black Lives Matter protest to face off the cops. That was a thing that I was going to do up until I saw this video. I'm not going to do that. I will not cuck myself out by not being racist. You know, that's who these people are for. Exactly. It is meant to affirm racist biases, not to make actual arguments.
This, you need to do this, and you need to do that, because you benefit from privilege thing is bogus.
It's fucking bogus, man. If you're white, you never hear the end of this shit. Dude, Take out the trash every Sunday. Wipe your asshole after you shit. Shower at least twice a week. Fucking, oh God, I'm so fucking tired of hearing. I go outside and this guy walks up to me and he's like, I don't know, black or like Jewish or something. I don't know. And he walks up to me and he's like, fucking, hey, pardon me. Because he's in like a wheelchair and I'm laying on the sidewalk widthwise and blocking his way. What the fuck does he think he can... What? Excuse me, please? Excuse you. Who built this country? I mean, not me. I'm practically physically infirm and I have blood pressure issues and erectile dysfunction and I can barely, you know, walk down the stairs without feeling a rush to my head. And also I spend all day on the computer and, you know, I've never felt the touch of a girl, but I would have built this country if I'd had the chance. Yeah, fuck it, like...
Maybe you think, oh, I agree with most of what the progressive left teaches about racial justice, but just not with some of this disagreeable stuff, only at the extremes. I'm here to tell you that the rot starts at the core.
Uh-huh. See? Notice the lack of specificity. That's because this guy's actual prescriptive positions would get him banned off YouTube. Guarantee it. If he were to actually say what world he wants or what policies he wants, honestly and fully openly, he would get banned off YouTube. So instead, we get very vague gesturing, you know? The rot starts at the core. Well, what is the core of progressivism? Because the abolitionist movement was definitely progressive for its time.
That we're going backwards. That this is history.
Evil or retarded? Okay. The way I normally try to work this out when I'm trying to determine, okay, is this guy like a Pole or Stormfront poster or actually a Nazi? Or is this guy just conveniently disseminating all of their propaganda in exactly the way they would try to as a way of stoking the base while appealing to normies without being specific, you know? And in my experience, the best way to find out the degree of maliciousness here, or malice, is how effectively are they hitting all the beats on the dog whistle? How effectively are they signaling at every single point they would make if it wasn't YouTube TOS?
Happy New Year, everyone. I hope that this new year brings you love, joy, and light.
Nice. Should get this guy on stream. People like this will never debate. Don't even try. Not a chance in the world. I mean, if anyone watches this and they get like, I don't know, triggered by me being right all the time, like they can come on a debate. It's been a while since I've had one of these special individuals on who have a bunch of racial animus and no brains to back it up. But, you know, the well is really drying up on that particular type of person because they're getting a bit smarter and realizing that they're not like really capable of defending their points. I will say that as a piece of propaganda, it is relatively well constructed. It's weirdly well constructed. Yeah, it's probably an op of some kind. Anyway, to be clear about my point here, there's nothing wrong with pointing out that there are white people and non-white people who have this weird anti-white animus, but the rhetoric of this video is broadly genocidal. It's broadly like a race war video. It doesn't actually make the point. The point of this video is not actually to challenge anti-white animus. It's to incite white people to feel they need to defend themselves against other races in order to preserve their station in society.
It's okay to hold prejudiced and hateful view of white people.
This non-white person is admitting it. They really do treat white people worse.